took some time today to share on two topics around college recruiting. The topic of emailing a college coach and the topic of visiting college campuses. They seem like pretty simple topics, but actually recently we're starting to see athletes do less and less of both of them. So in this episode, I wanted to talk about why good email communication between student athletes and college coaches is important. And also wanted to talk about the different types of campus visits that you should be doing during your college recruiting journey. I hope that you find value in this. I hope you enjoy. College recruiting is a very difficult landscape to navigate right now. And I think as you're navigating it, two topics, one being emails to coaches and the other topic being campus visits, are kind of lost arts and somewhat difficult to know how to utilize both of those strategies during your college recruiting process. So I'd like to just share some reasons why I think it's important that you spend time around the email process with college coaches, and also using the visits to be able to make the right decision. So why is the college recruiting landscape so difficult right now? You have a certain aspect of college recruiting that happens really early for those kind of 1% of athletes that physically develop and have, kind of generational skills at a very young age. There's that process begins pretty early. And then there's another part of the college recruiting process that's happening later and later. And much of that is because of just the differences in transfer rules and the amount of kids or student athletes that kind of got backlogged during the COVID era. There's reasons that the recruiting landscape is getting later and later, but it's important to utilize all of the skills and strategies of finding your college home, and emails and campus visits are two of those that are incredibly important. So let's dive into emails. And so the email portion of college recruiting has kind of become a lost art. And I think most of that is because of the social media world, where coaches or scouts and athletes can have direct communication through social media, liking posts, sending DMs, sending invitations to camps through social media. Social media, specifically Twitter and maybe Instagram, have provided a platform for more direct access to college programs from the student athlete's perspective, but then also from the college programs to the athlete. And, for them to learn about the athlete, see the athlete in action, even have a direct communication to that athlete. So that's social media provides an avenue for communication, but I would argue that it doesn't provide the avenue that college coaches will utilize when students are on campus. When students are on campus, more communication is utilized directly through text messaging, group messaging, and also emails. So it's important that a college coach sees how a student athlete and their family can interact in an email platform. So let's talk about emails. And if you're going to use that strategy as part of your college recruiting process, what are some important things that coaches are looking for when they're receiving hundreds and hundreds of emails? First off, punctuation. Can you properly, as a 16, 17, 18-year-old young student athlete, can you properly use the email platform? Do you address the coach correctly? Do you use punctuation inside of your email? Do you use paragraphing? Pretty basic stuff that shows up inside of high school composition classes. It's important that a player can use that form of writing when speaking to a college coach. It's not the time to use shorthand or use abbreviations or use Snapchat lingo. It's not the time to incorrectly use punctuation. when writing an email to a college coach, the college coach wants to know how they're going to interact with you in that professional setting. That's one reason why it's really important to use that platform. I talked a little bit about how to address a coach. So I would use the word like, salutation. I think that's like the formal word of, how do you say Coach Smith or Mr. Smith or Miss Smith? Maybe you're interacting with a female coach and you're not sure if that coach is married or not married, or you're interacting with a coach, and you were at a tournament and, they maybe introduce themselves with their first name, but when you're writing an email, you should, use a salutation or use a dear Coach Smith, make it formal. So that's another reason why college coaches want to see you interact with them in that professional setting as well. Let's talk a little bit about your email address. So, do we have a proper email address? Our first initial, our last name at Gmail, or our first initial, our last name, and maybe our uniform number at, another, Gmail or iMail or whatever, Yahoo or whatever it maybe is that you're using. Try to use an email address that you're going to have your whole life, that you're going to use all through college, that, imagine going to interviews after college. Email platform is another important tool when you're going through the job search process. So, have an email address that's professional, that's something that you can use all 4 years of college and beyond, and going into the professional side of your job search. Personalization. Let's talk a little bit about this. This is important. Any email that you send really shouldn't be just a copy and paste. Now, you could copy and paste some of the basics of the email, things that you want to provide the coach, information you want to provide the coach. But if you can get to a spot to where you're really personalizing that email. So for instance, I was on a recent recruiting call with a student athlete of ours, and we were talking, he wanted to email a coach coming out of a camp, excuse me, to determine kind of that program's interest in him. He had a lot of interest in the program. He enjoyed the camp, and he wanted to gauge that program's interest. Well, if you just send like a blanket email that says, dear coach, I went to your camp. Are you interested in me playing, for your program? Your likelihood of getting a response from that coach is really low. That coach is going to get a lot of those types of emails and just sort of gloss over them. And, coaches do a really good job of communicating back. But, if it's not really targeted with specific information, then the likelihood of them responding to that is a little bit lower. So what can you do to encourage that coach to respond and also start a dialogue with that coach? And personalization is one way. So I was talking to the athlete and I said, why did you like it? Oh, I like their facilities. I love the feel of this campus. And I, liked that business program or whatever that academic program was. Well, I kind of wanted him to go another layer. Like, what did you like about the campus? And he's like, I couldn't believe like how new the buildings felt. It's just they had a ton of branding all over the walls there and all over the crosswalks on campus. And I said, okay, start writing that. So he put in there, I really enjoyed campus. I was walking from this building to this building and just seeing all the branding, and I could tell that there was a huge pride for the school. I can't believe like all the buildings look new. And then so he just all of a sudden he took that point of liking campus, but he really made it personal to that school. And then he went to the second point, which was I think he liked the coach's energy. And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, man, they were always, really high energy. They I love the environment of the drills that they did, and the coaches were very active. And I said, okay, now write that. So he started to write that, and he started to, really give some specifics of the coach's energy. The point is that by personalizing the email, and he had this information, he had these opinions, but by putting that in the email, that allowed the coach, when that coach read that, to be like, man, this player really did pay attention to our school and our program and got a lot about who we are. And that coach did reply back, and he did have a direct communication with that coach through email that coach sent a wonderful email back to him, very professional, provided a lot of information in that email, and it was so it was a great dialogue. And I firmly believe that one of the reasons why was how personal that email was that the student athlete crafted. Kind of two more points to the email. When you're writing the email, towards the end of it, I encourage you as a student athlete to kind of put an open-ended question in there. So in that situation that I was talking about a minute ago, that student athlete wanted to know, what kind of interest that coach or that program had with him. So like he asked questions. Did I stand out? What parts of my game did you like? What parts do you feel like are ready for your level? He asked open-ended questions that encouraged the coach to respond back. And that increases the chance of the coach responding back. The final thing that I want to just talk about on emails is around camps. When you recently went to a camp, you have a great opportunity on the backside of that to use email. If you want to go to a camp, you have a great opportunity to determine if that camp is going to be, maybe it's just going to be a camp where, there's not really going to be a lot of recruiting opportunity. It's just skill development. So those are good camps. Those can, maybe you want to go and really get some development from those coaches. But if you're trying to determine if a camp is going to have a recruiting kind of flavor to it, then it's really good to use email before a camp to kind of discern what that coach is going to be looking for. So, coach, I'm considering coming to your camp on this day. The reasons why I'm considering coming to the camp is, number one, I'd love to get some pitching, influence from you. But number two, I'm really trying to gauge my comfortability on your campus, the size, how it feels. Coach, do you believe that this would be a good camp for me to come to? And, to get that information to be able to gauge if this is one of the top schools that I'm interested in? Question mark. Most coaches are going to be honest. They're going to come back and say, you know what, this camp's pretty generic. Maybe look at this camp. Or yes, this camp is going to be a really good opportunity for you to get that vibe. And actually, I'd love for you to come a little early. Excuse me. I'd love for you to come a little early and I'd show you around campus and so forth. That's a great, email's a great way to filter out which camps are worth you doing on certain campuses and with certain coaches. So in conclusion, email to coaches is a great strategy to advance your recruiting process, but you gotta use good punctuation. You gotta use good salutation. You gotta use good personalization. You have to make it have some questions in there that can engage, encourage open-ended back and forth dialogue with the program. And email's it's a great avenue to find that right fit. Now let's shift to visits. So the visits, I noticed in the COVID era that visits became less and less. And really, there were some campuses that you couldn't visit. You just had to use virtual touring to determine if it was going to be the right fit. I firmly believe that if you don't visit the campus, it's going to increase the likelihood that you're going to transfer out of that school. You have to get on campus. And I'd even say that there's certain strategies you got to use when you're on campus, such as before I'm making that final decision of, is this the right fit for me? I'm doing an overnight visit. I'm staying on campus with the student athlete, away from my parents, away from the coach, and I'm going to get a firsthand experience on what it's going to be like to be a student athlete at that school. Now, let's work our way back, because you can't do that at every school. So how do I utilize visits? The first kind of bucket of visits that I suggest you do would be just campus drive-throughs. That may be you're at a tournament in a city and there's a college campus there that you're potentially interested in, or you're on vacation and there's some college campuses around that you want to go visit. Going and driving through campus can tell you a lot about what preferences you have. I'll give you some examples. If you drive through the Miami of Ohio, you're going to notice that campus is It's got some intimate feelings. It's beautiful. It's meticulous. Like all the buildings look alike. You're gonna know, it's a little smaller. You're gonna know that you're on campus. Like you're not gonna wonder like, where does the campus start and where does it end? You're gonna know. It has very distinct identity. Now, that may be different than the University of Illinois. University of Illinois has very much of a city feel. The college campus almost is, the size of a city. So you're going to see in the middle of campus, you might notice restaurants and diverse buildings that look different. You may not know if you're on campus because it almost has a city vibe. Well, both of those are different feels. And if you drive through campus, it's going to give you a feel of which one you really enjoy more. And that's going to help you to, kind of select the future schools that you want to look at. So I just encourage everybody, when you get to be freshmen, sophomores, juniors, take the opportunity when you have downtime, when you're on vacation, when you're visiting family, take the opportunity to drive through campuses and really start to, identify what feel you like. Another visit is, a little bit more of like what's called an unofficial visit. So it may be a little bit more targeted, but you're probably not doing it overnight. You're probably not just going like specific to only you. This may be like a campus visit day. A lot of schools have general campus visit days in the fall. Sometimes they're on holidays when you get off of school, or you're traditionally off of school, like a Veterans Day or something of that nature, where you can go, you can sign up for a tour, you can sign up to talk to the academic programs that you're interested in. You also can follow up with the coach, maybe through email. Hey, coach, I'm coming on campus this day. If you have time, I'd love to talk to you or walk around the school with you. Some coaches might respond to that and be engaged in unofficial visits. I know when I was a college coach, I liked to, if a student was dropping by for an unofficial visit, I did like to meet them and talk to them and get some basic information from them and tell them a little bit about our program. But it wasn't super formal. It wasn't, where it was like a lot of time that we spent together. These are great ways like to take your list from really big to a little bit more selected. Sophomore year, junior year, these are great kind of types of visits. What else? Around a camp, like you're going for a camp, go a day early, go a morning early, take a little tour, do an unofficial visit that way. Those are, great. It's a great way to, pare down your list, but it's not what I would call sort of the final visit. Now let's talk about the final visits. I'm going to call those official visits. Now, at the Division I level, if you're one of the generational type of players, your official visit can be really formal. They may be flying you out to campus, have a really big agenda for you, and you're going with other kids that are wanting to go to that school. So it has a lot of formality to it. Excuse me. But it also can be, let's say I'm deciding that I'm going to go to a smaller school and there's no real visit process, right? They're not flying me out. It's only a couple hours away from my house. I am still asking the coach if I can do an overnight visit. Coach, I'd like to come up. I have off this day from my program or my practice. I'd like to visit. I'd like to stay the night. Is there any athletes that you would recommend or on campus housing that I could stay in? I would love to, have some players show me around, give me kind of the real details of what it is to be a student athlete there. That's probably a good opportunity for you, like your family to go, and also like to go talk to financial aid. Go talk to financial aid, meet the coach, go to breakfast with the coach, go to dinner with the coach. You're really trying to, as a family, envision what it's going to look like to hand you off to a college program. Is it a family feel? What do the players say about the program outside of, when they're not around the coach? What do practices look like? Maybe you can watch a practice when you're there. Late at night on a Friday night, what does everybody do? Where's everybody eat at? Where's the dining hall? What's that look like? These are difference makers when it comes to visits. This is where you're going to, determine, is this the right fit for me? And I'm telling you, if you do this, your likelihood of staying there, enjoying your decision, feeling comfortable, families, your comfortability of dropping your son or daughter off on that first day of school, it's going to increase if you're willing to just do this extra step. So many people right now make decisions and they don't go through this kind of visit process. So I just wanted to provide that encouragement that you only get to really make this first college decision once. So utilize your visits, the casual ones all the way to the formal ones. Utilize your visits so that you can really feel comfortable that this is the right fit. That's all I have for you today. I just wanted to, take some of the information that I've been sharing with some student athletes in our one-on-ones, and I just wanted to share that with you. I hope you found value in the concept of emails and how emails can be an important part of the recruiting process. And I hope visits become something that we do a little bit more of as student athletes, and we get back to really making sure that our decision is our forever home and where we want to be for that 4 to 8 years that we go to college. So I hope you all enjoyed this discussion. And if you ever have any questions or you want to just bounce some ideas about college recruiting, feel free. Please reach out, reply in the comments on YouTube or whatever it may be, and I'll be sure to get back to you.